Trying to keep up on everything as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic so far has, for many, been a bit like trying to drink from a fire hose. Unfortunately, that leaves us open to all manner of misinformation, rumor, and even scams. With us to help counter some of that, in Edmonton, Alberta, via Skype, Timothy Caulfield, professor of health law and science policy at the University of Alberta and the author of the forthcoming book, Relax, Damn It. And in Toronto, via Skype, Jane Lytvynenko, but you know her as Jane. She is the senior reporter at BuzzFeed News, focusing on disinformation, security, and online investigations. And we are delighted to welcome both of you to TVO tonight. Again, we reiterate, in case people haven't heard, we're having no guests in the studio as a means of, doing our part for social distancing and so on. And therefore, Jane, even though you're in Toronto, you're on the line. And Timothy, same to you. Thanks for joining us from Edmonton. We're going to use a couple of different terms here tonight, maybe three actually. Disinformation and misinformation. And we're going to sort of describe the difference here. Misinformation is just stuff that's wrong. And regardless of whether there's intent to mislead, it's just bad information. Disinformation is information that is deliberately misleading. It has a mischievous motive to it. So we're going to talk about these different things during the course of our conversation. And Jane, I'll start with you because you've been covering the disinformation and misinformation surrounding this coronavirus ever since it began in China. Can you tell us, since then, how it has all evolved?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the news of the virus first broke, and when we found out that China was dealing with this epidemic, which was then an epidemic, it was more of an arm's length type of misinformation. We were looking at what was happening at China, and we were learning myths about that. One of the most prominent myths that came out of that was that the spread of the coronavirus was a deliberate attempt at a bioweapon. Now, that is completely false, and there has actually been a study released today showing that that's false. Then, as the coronavirus came to Europe and now North America, disinformation, misinformation is being targeted at the people here who may be either experiencing symptoms or are just afraid that they will be catching the virus. So now we really need to be vigilant about the type of information we rely on.
Okay, let's break that down, Timothy, and just focus on the misinformation. This is stuff that's wrong without necessarily the attempt to be mischievous. It's just out and out wrong. How would you characterize the threat that misinformation poses when we're in the midst of a global pandemic?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it really has had a tremendous impact. And of course, part of the reasons is this is the first pandemic in the social media age. And so we're seeing so much information on social media that's getting shared. And that's a really important point. A lot of people are sharing this stuff, and it's creating an incredibly chaotic information environment, right? Which is, really, I think, really problematic. And we're seeing misinformation about everything again from the source. That's starting to fade a little bit. I think now the dominant bits of misinformation are largely focused on cures and preventative strategies, and things that you can do even around your home, ways that you could disinfect your house. That is really problematic. And to be honest with you, depending on how you categorize disinformation and misinformation, some of this is disinformation because it's marketing, Steve. They're trying to use this moment to leverage profits. At times, I think there are practitioners out there, alternative practitioners, who really may believe they're doing good and that the advice is sound, but it's still misinformation when you look at it from a scientific perspective.
Okay, Jane, you've been looking at it all. Can you give us, your top three least favorite misinformation attempts by people in the midst of this thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the top one I would say would be false cures. And this generally looks like YouTube videos that are telling you to inhale hot air. Sometimes this looks like supplement sales, which sort of coyly hint at boosting your immune system. And sometimes it's bad advice like drinking water every 15 minutes because your stomach acid may kill the coronavirus, which there's absolutely no evidence for.
And Timothy,
The
let's
other
just, oh, forgive me, go ahead, keep going.
My apologies. Just the one other thing that we're seeing a lot of is reports that cities are about to shut down that are attributed to various figures of authority. And those figures of authority have had to debunk a fair amount of these rumors.
Indeed, we saw the mayor of Toronto, in fact, John Tory, on Twitter the other day saying, I don't know what rumors you folks are hearing, but they're not true, and let's not get ahead of ourselves on all of this stuff. But having said that, Timothy, can you tell us, you know, if somebody wants to go out there and inhale hot air because they think it's going to make them healthier, is there any harm in that, actually?
Yeah, I think there is, and I agree with Jane's list. The cures, it's infuriating, right? It's infuriating. There is harm. So, sometimes there's physical harm associated with some of these alleged cures. Like if you think of something like a lot of, for example, alternative practitioners are offering IV vitamin therapy. That can be harmful. Too much vitamins, too many supplements can actually be harmful, and there's evidence to back that up. And there are other kinds of cures, like homeopathy, absolutely no evidence to support that at all, that can cause harm in a more subtle way by distracting us from strategies that may actually be efficacious. There could be also financial loss. And again, Steve, it goes back to this situation where you're just creating a chaotic environment, an information environment that makes it more difficult to follow the advice from those trusted sources, the World Health Organization, the Public Health Agency of Canada, and that's problematic in itself.
Let me just ask our director, Sheldon Osmond. Sheldon, can you go to the bottom of page 2 and let's just bring this tweet up from Jane, where she says there have been many companies coyly selling immunity-boosting products, hinting that the virus spread. While it is, of course, good to eat healthily, get lots of sleep and exercise, there are currently no known preventative treatments for COVID-19. And we see, Jane, I mean, you've brought this to our attention here, this ad for the best defense is a strong immune system, and then a whole host of products that are being offered which theoretically boost the immune system. Tell me what you find problematic here.
So the first thing is that it's definitely marketing to a vulnerable population. Everybody's afraid and everybody wants to not get this virus. So it's a very opportunistic type of marketing where they're essentially, they're not using the word coronavirus, but you know why they're sending you this email in this particular time. And the danger with these cures is that people may feel like they're okay to travel around, like they're okay to not socially distance. And what all of them are doing is they're completely ignoring the way that the virus spread works, which is you can change your internal, you can change what you eat or how much you exercise, and it's good to keep healthy in your body, but you cannot change whether the virus sticks to your body, sticks to a surface, whether you touch something and whether you pass it on. And it's this type of misinformation that I sort of worry about the most, people getting the false feeling of comfort.
Well, Timothy, let's just be clear about this. If we take zinc or if we up our intake of vitamin C or probiotics, will that stuff actually enhance our immunity system?
Look, the idea that you can boost your immune system, it drives me insane. It's something I've written about before. You can't do it. You can't do it. It's a real misnomer. Now, I think what they're really saying is you want to have a healthy immune system, right? You don't have a compromised immune system. That's a sort of a different story. But the advertising is always about this idea of boosting your immune system. Look, Steve, having an anaphylactic reaction, that's a boosted immune system, right? Autoimmune diseases, those are boosted immune systems. The immune system is very, very complex. You cannot boost it in the way that it is alleged by these therapies. But you see that kind of noise everywhere. Chiropractors saying you need to get adjusted to boost your immune system. Again, you get these IV vitamin therapies to boost your immune system, on and on and on. And people should really ignore it all. And I also worry that this is really leveraging off of this sort of long-term tolerance of misinformation in the health sphere that's giving legitimacy to this. I mean, look, the supplement industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and much of their claims have always been bunked. And the fact that we're in the middle of a health crisis just emphasizes that reality even more, right? So I hope that we can learn from this.
Okay, Jane, let's now go from misinformation, which, as we say, was was wrong information, but not necessarily mischievously put out there. And let us go to disinformation, where there is actually an attempt by the purveyors of this information to deceive for nefarious purposes. What's at the top of your hit list there?
So early on, I was just looking at when we started noticing this in February. People who are politically motivated or people who have financial interest in China began to spread rumors that the virus was deliberately spread, that it wasn't an accident. And to me, that is the top piece of flat out disinformation that we're seeing. And now there have been many scientists who have looked into the origin of the coronavirus, and they have said that there is absolutely no evidence that this virus was altered in a laboratory. But that narrative has really caught on.
It really has, Timothy. And can you talk to us about maybe the political implications of much of the world believing that this was a nefarious plot by the Chinese to poison everybody else in the rest of the world?
Yeah, I agree with Jane. This is really really frustrating. In early days, you saw that narrative take hold, and as Jane probably knows better than I do, it hasn't gone away, right? And they continue to leverage that idea. You see Donald Trump using that same kind of narrative to blame China. You see Donald Trump subtly using language like the China virus, right, in order to give the sense of the bad other that again helps him politically. And Steve, you see more subtle versions of this. In India, for example, there are individuals who are pushing a particular ideological agenda by marketing traditional therapies. Again, the idea there is it's a support a political idea. So I find that really problematic on a number of levels. First of all, it's just wrong. It's scientifically and factually wrong. But also it invites us to distrust both science and to distrust particular entities. And I think the best example of that is the disinformation flowing from places like Russia that are really trying to undermine our trust in our healthcare system and in our governments because that plays to their agenda. And of course, at a time like this, this is when you really want trust, right? You want to be able to trust science. You want to be able to trust the public health authorities. And to be honest with you, you also want to be able to trust your government. So I think this narrative really erodes all of those levels in a really problematic way.
Jane, can you tell whether or not these efforts by, let's say, foreign powers to disinform, in other words, with nefarious purpose, are working?
So we have to be really careful with attribution in terms of where we see disinformation coming from. We just don't know whether mis and disinformation is being spread by state actors at the moment. But what we do know is that almost every country, including Russia and Iran and Egypt, and even the US, has put out sort of narratives that are convenient for them around this virus. We also know from cybersecurity researchers that the countries that have people that have essentially cyber criminals at their beck and call have been active online. And now when it comes to state actors spreading disinformation, while we do need to be aware of that, we also need to be aware of the way that disinformation spreads, which is person to person, organically, through us passing on something that we're not sure about.
In which case, Timothy, give us some advice right now. What steps can people take to ensure that they are not fooled by either bad information, misinformation, or nefarious attempts, as in disinformation?
Yeah, I think Jane is so right. It's important to remember that this spreads. I apologize for this analogy, but it spreads like a virus, right? Misinformation does, and it's individual to individual, increasingly so in this social media age. So there's a lot of things you can do, and the first one is obvious, and we've heard this over and over again. Rely on those trusted sources, the World Health Organization, Public Health Agency of Canada, CDC, those entities that are aggregating the scientific information in a responsible way. And that's really important, especially with a topic like this, where the science is always evolving and the story is always evolving. So I think that's really important. The other thing that we can do, and there's research to back this up, is to pause, right? I know that sounds, again, very, very simple, but it's true. And if people don't want to be inaccurate, people don't want to pass along misinformation. So really sort of trying to build this culture of accuracy, asking people to pause and get a sense of the degree to which this is accurate. In fact, there's work that's being done here in Canada by people like Gordon Pennycook, who's at the University of Regina, someone who I'm collaborating with, that really shows the degree to which that is true. So trusted sources, pause, think about accuracy, and think about the source.
Jane, anything you'd add to that in order to create what's being referred to as a culture of accuracy?
Absolutely. So, what we know about why disinformation works is that it plays on people's emotions. It makes people really anxious or really angry, and it encourages them to act. And it's not always as nefarious as it sounds. Sometimes it is a picture with words over it that seems to have a good source but doesn't. Sometimes it is a video in which a person misspeaks, and sometimes it is somebody passing on that's something that they've heard. So I definitely agree that pausing is a really good way to start. Definitely pause and think about whether you trust the source that you're looking at. Take a deep breath and then Google it. If you are able to Google it and to find a debunk or to find an article explaining what is happening, share that instead. Make sure that people in your immediate network see it. And as for us at BuzzFeed, we've been taking submissions from anybody who sees bad information. So if you do not see something on Google, if there is no article, please find me. I'm on Twitter. My email is there as well. And we will help get the correct information to you.
I guess part of the problem here, Timothy, is that many people, if they're finding these things, for example, on social media, it's just a hell of a lot of fun sometimes, the crazier it is, to just pass it along to friends and say, hey, look at this, without appreciating the fact that somebody along the way is maybe going to agree with this. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. And again, there's research to back that up. As Jane was highlighting, if it's emotive, if it's entertaining, if it's a great narrative, we have, again, research to back that up, it's more likely to have an impact, to get traction. Humans have a tendency, we have a strong negativity bias, I'll put it that way. And if it's a dramatic story, and again, there's evidence to back this up, it's going to perform better, right? So, remind yourself of that. Remind yourself of the cognitive biases that we all have, every one of us. And when you are looking at a story, say, is this true, or am I just kind of responding emotionally to it? And the other thing I think is important to remember is the topic. If it's a topic that is controversial and important to public health and important to our well-being, I think we should be extra cautious. We're not sharing a story about Tom Brady. We're sharing a story about a pandemic.
But as long as you're on the topic, is that ridiculous that he's leaving New England to go to Tampa Bay? I mean, what is he thinking?
It's breaking my heart, Steve. It's breaking my heart.
Another subject for another show. Okay, but Jane, having said that, at the best of times, I know a lot of people complain about trying to get Facebook or Twitter or YouTube to be, ultra responsible in getting the garbage off their sites and having information that's more reliable. It's even more important now, obviously, given that whatever is out there can actually cause death. So, in your view, are those major social media platforms doing enough to sanitize their sites at the moment?
You hit the nail on the head when you said that at the best of times, they're not particularly effective at it. For the last 3 or so years, governments, activists, journalists have been calling on social media platforms to do better with their websites, with cleaning this up. Now, social media websites have been working with governments to get the good information out. They have been doing their best to try to stop the spread of mis and disinformation, but it is clearly not enough. And that is because they don't have the robust infrastructure in place to battle the rumors that are currently coming out. And if you think the situation in English is bad, please remember that these are global global platforms where there are many different languages, dozens if not hundreds, and there may not be the fact checkers in place to get that good information to people who speak those other languages.
Well, Timothy, we've got about a minute and change to go here, and maybe I can use this analogy. In political campaigns, they often have war rooms, so if there is mis or disinformation out there, the campaigns jump on them right away and say, no, that's wrong, and here's the truth. Are there any COVID-19 war rooms out there that you think we can trust, that when they see bad information, they're on it right away and we get it fixed?
Well, they're emerging. For example, the World Health Organization now has a great list of myths. And in addition to that, they have an infographic that's really easy to share. So I encourage people, if you're going to share something, share stuff like that, right? Go to a trusted source, it's myth busting, and share their item. Really useful. You can do that. There are also research platforms around the world, and people like Jane that are doing fantastic work to bust myths. So go to those sources. Also, I do think it's good news that the big platforms like Facebook, like Twitter, like Instagram, and even Google are recognizing the role that they're playing. But this is a battle that's going to go on, and we all need to be vigilant.
Well, we are happy in our remaining seconds to put up Jane Lytvynenko's information here, that if you do see something and you want to stop the spread of disinformation, there she is, Jane.Lytvynenko at BuzzFeed.com. And if you find her last name impossible to spell, you can just get her on her Twitter feed at Jane Lytv, Jane Lytv. And you can also pass on good information to her there. Hey, I want to thank both of you for coming on to TVO tonight and helping us out with this. Yevgenia Lytvynenko, Timothy Caulfield, thanks a lot to both of you.
Thanks very much, Steve.
Thank you for having us.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.